All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time around, we're tackling this PDF you sent over, Speed Training for Combat Boxing Martial Arts and MMA.pdf.
Sounds intense.
It is, and our mission today is to really try to figure out, I mean, how do you get faster in a fight? Like what actually works, not just the flashy stuff you see on, like highlight reels and things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're clearly the kind of person who wants to get right to the core knowledge quickly and thoroughly.
Right to the point.
Right to the point. And this source is packed with it.
Yeah, it really is.
So we're here to kind of help you navigate that, cut through to the essential principles, the stuff you can really use without getting bogged down.
Without getting bogged down, exactly. So one of the things that jumps out right away in this document is this idea of applied speed versus demonstration speed.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
And we've all seen like those incredible displays where someone, claims to throw 20 punches in a second.
Right, yeah, a blur of motion.
Blur of motion, yeah. Like think of a martial artist whipping around nunchucks. It's super impressive to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
But the author's arguing that in a real fight, what actually matters is this thing called applied speed.
Okay, so what's the distinction there?
So it's like, think of it like this. Like a single, well-placed strike with a stick. Like that focused power.
Okay, so it's not about how many hits you can land, but the quality of the single hit.
Exactly, exactly. It's more effective, it's more practical if you're actually in a confrontation. You're not trying to just overwhelm someone with a flurry of blows that might leave you vulnerable. You're looking for that precise moment to deliver a strike with maximum impact and, minimum exposure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of like the nunchuck versus stick analogy.
Yeah, exactly. The nunchuck might seem inherently faster, right? And it's more
Yeah.
intricate, but the stick is presented as that more direct and ultimately more useful tool for self-defense.
Right, so it boils down to efficiency and really just effectiveness in a real world scenario.
Exactly. And the document actually gets into how do you cultivate this applied speed? And they introduce this concept called the speed loop.
Okay, speed loop, I like it.
Yeah, it's described as a system with 7 crucial elements, and they all kind of work together to determine your overall combat speed.
7 elephants, that's a lot to unpack.
We're not going to be able to cover all 7 in this deep dive, but we're definitely going to unpack some of the really foundational ones.
Okay, yeah, give us the core essentials.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that's really important to mention, the source actually states in its legal notice and disclaimer, before you even think about trying any of this stuff, any of these physical activities, any of these drills, talk to your doctor.
Yeah, yeah. Safety first.
Safety first, absolutely. Always good advice. Okay, so let's jump into the first area we're going to focus on, visual reflexes. And the document explains that, your ability to quickly spot openings, track movements, your visual reflexes, those are most important in those longer range fighting scenarios.
So we're talking kicking range, boxing range, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And a key part of this quick seeing ability is something they call blink control.
Blink control. I blink all the time.
You and everyone else, and the author points out that that natural blink, that very brief closing of your eyelids, that's something you can't totally eliminate.
Right, it's involuntary.
But the tendency to just shut your eyes tight when you feel threatened,
Oh, yeah,
that is a big obstacle, and you can actually train to overcome it.
you can.
Oh.
Okay, how do you do that?
So the training for blink control, it actually starts pretty simply. You just focus on relaxing and consciously trying to keep your eyes open.
Okay.
And then it progresses to light contact sparring with a partner.
Right.
And initially, the focus isn't on blocking or dodging. It's just about maintaining that blink control.
Okay, so just getting used to the idea of something coming at you.
Exactly.
Not flinching.
Not flinching, yeah. And once you're comfortable with that, you move into faster but still light contact sparring.
Gotcha.
And the idea here is for both of you to try to trigger a blink in the other person using feints and what the source calls broken rhythm.
Okay, so broken rhythm, what does that mean?
So I think what they're getting at is like changing the timing of your feints, right?
Oh, okay. So like sometimes being really quick, sometimes being a little bit slower.
Exactly.
Throwing them off.
Exactly. And the point of that is it prevents your partner from anticipating like when the movement is coming.
Right. Yeah. So they can't brace themselves.
Right, right. And it makes it harder for them to just react predictably, and that increases the likelihood that they're going to have that natural blink response.
Makes sense. So the emphasis here is on light, fast contact. It's not about power. It's not about trying to land a huge knockout blow. It's just about training your eyes and your mental response to those perceived threats.
Exactly. And that kind of intentional focus on a specific skill, like in this case, blink control, that's something we see a lot in this material.
Okay. And it seems really valuable, like really honing in on one specific thing.
Yeah. And moving beyond blink control, the source also gives us some techniques to actually sharpen our peripheral vision.
Oh, okay.
And the first one is called the public awareness drill.
Public awareness. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So you focus your gaze on a distant object, right? So this could be like a building across the street, could be a telephone pole, something like that.
Okay.
And then you soften your focus, you let your vision become a little more diffused. And the goal is to stay aware of any movements that are happening in that blurry peripheral vision while still keeping your main focus on that distant point.
Okay. So you're kind of splitting your attention in a way.
You are. And it's tapping into your ability to detect movement outside of your direct line of sight, but it's training you to become much more consciously aware of those subtle cues.
Right. Expanding your field of vision in a way.
Expanding your field of vision, exactly.
Right. What's next?
Then there's the name call drill.
Name call.
Yeah. So imagine you're standing facing like 3 or more partners, and they're spread out in front of you. You kind of soften your focus, looking generally at the person in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
but your peripheral vision is taking in the others to the side.
Okay.
And as soon as anyone in that group makes even a slight movement, you call out their name immediately.
Like, wow. Okay, that sounds challenging.
It is challenging, but it's adding that reactive element to the peripheral vision training. It's forcing you to not just passively notice movement, but to actively identify where it's coming from.
Gotcha. So it's not enough to just, oh, something moved. You got to know, oh, it was Bob who moved.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we're really getting specific with the training here.
We are, and there's another one called the alphabet game.
Alphabet game.
Yeah. This one, you stand about 15 feet away from a partner, and they use their finger to draw like imaginary letters in the air between you.
Oh, okay.
And your job is to identify what letter they're drawing
Oh, wow.
and to make it even harder to really work that peripheral vision. They can move to the side.
Okay.
So the letter's actually being drawn outside of your direct line of sight.
Gotcha. So it's not just seeing the letter, it's seeing the letter kind of peripherally.
Exactly. And it's adding like a cognitive layer to it too. You have to
Mhm.
interpret that information that's coming from your periphery and then translate it into something that you recognize.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And that progression, having the partner move outside your direct view, that's key. It's pushing your limits.
Right. Yeah. Making it harder and harder.
Exactly.
So what's the last one here?
Okay, so the final recommendation for peripheral vision is sparring against multiple opponents.
Oh, wow. That sounds intense.
It is. It is. The idea is as your peripheral vision gets sharper through these other drills, this becomes the ultimate test.
Real deal.
It's the most effective way to enhance it for those real-world situations where you might not be facing just one person.
Right. That's the reality of a fight.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And you can start like light and fast sparring without any gear and then gradually progress to full contact, but obviously with the necessary safety equipment.
Yeah, for sure.
So this simulates that visually chaotic environment of dealing with multiple threats.
Okay, so you're not just focused on one person. You got to be aware of everything happening around you.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about seeing effectively. Now, the document kind of shifts its focus to this idea of visual stamina,
Right.
which it's more than just seeing clearly. It's about sustained focus.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's described as the ability to quickly lock your focus onto something, an object,
Yeah.
and then maintain that intense concentration for a prolonged period.
Okay, so not just seeing, but like really locking on.
Locking on, yeah. And the interesting potential outcome of this, according to the author, is something they call speed retardation.
Seed retardation.
Yeah, and it's basically where where even fast movements appear to be happening in slow motion.
Okay.
And what's really interesting here is that our perception of speed is what matters in a fight.
Okay. So a movement might look incredibly fast to someone who's untrained,
Right.
but someone who's trained, who's got that visual stamina,
Right.
they can perceive it as much slower.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not that the movement is physically slowing down, it's that your brain is becoming so efficient at processing that information
Yeah.
that it feels slower.
Exactly. And this actually connects to like the idea of an adrenaline rush in high stress situations.
Right.
The source mentions that adrenaline can sometimes lead to these seemingly superhuman feats, right?
Yeah, we've all heard stories.
But it also makes this really crucial point. In a fight, the person whose adrenaline flow is disrupted or shut off often ends up losing.
Oh, interesting.
And the key to maintaining that focus and control, even when you're under immense stress, is developing the mental focus, that concentration.
Okay, so mental training is just as important as physical training in that sense.
Exactly. Effective fighting, according to the author, is as much, if not more, about controlling your mind and emotions as it is about physical prowess.
So powerful.
And to actually build this visual stamina and potentially experience that speed retardation effect, the source gives us a few specific drills.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first one is record read.
Record read, like a vinyl record.
Exactly. You take a record player
Yeah.
and you try to read the label of a spinning record just by glancing at it.
Wow, okay. Taking it old school.
Old school, yeah.
Yeah.
And this really forces your eyes to quickly lock onto and process a moving target.
Yeah, because that label's whizzing by.
It is. And then there's another one called number flash.
Never flash.
Yeah.
That's that one.
So for this one, you write down a column of 4-digit numbers, you cover them with a card, and you quickly slide the card down to reveal a single number,
Okay.
just for like a fraction of a second.
Right.
And then immediately after, you try to call out the number that you saw.
Oh, wow.
So it's all about like snatching that visual information and committing it to memory instantly.
So rapid visual recognition and memory recall.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then finally for visual stamina, there's the point focus drill.
Point focus.
Yeah. You take a piece of paper and you mark it with a bunch of small dots, and then you tape it to a wall, like roughly face level. You stand back and you practice, your shadow boxing.
Okay.
But here's the key. You keep your eyes locked on a single dot on that paper the whole time.
It's tough.
Yeah. And then as your ability to focus improves, you can challenge yourself. You can speed up your movements, move farther away from the paper, even add more dots to the paper.
Right. So it gets harder and harder to maintain that focus.
Exactly.
All right, I like it.
And this directly trains your ability to maintain that focus on a single point even while your body's moving.
Right.
Which is crucial for tracking an opponent during a real fight.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, after all that work on our eyes, the source moves into a fascinating area called the sixth sense.
Ooh, sixth sense. Getting mystical.
It does sound a little mystical, but the author is actually very clear. They're not talking about like traditional ESP or psychic abilities.
Okay.
Instead, they describe it as developed sensory perception, or DSP, rather than extrasensory
It's
perception.
a DSP, so it's like a heightened level of subconscious functioning.
Exactly. And it allows you to perceive events like a split second before they actually consciously register.
So kind of reframing what we might think of as a gut feeling
Yeah.
or an instinct as actually a result of highly tuned sensory awareness.
Exactly. It's not magic. It's your brain processing those incredibly subtle cues and patterns from your environment that your conscious mind might completely miss.
Wow.
And this sixth sense, according to the source, is what allows you to develop anticipation skills.
Anticipation skill. So
Yeah.
so that's the ability to predict what your opponent's going to do, like before they even start to move.
Exactly.
Almost like a mental connection with their mind.
Yeah, it's described as almost like a mental connection, allowing you to read their intentions.
That's fascinating.
And the source gives us several drills to actually help cultivate this anticipation.
Okay, so how do we tap into this sixth sense?
So the first one is TV response.
TV response.
Yeah.
What do you do?
You stand, about 8 feet away from a television, sound completely off,
Okay.
and you watch an action-packed program, like, something with a lot of movement.
Yep.
And Every single time the camera shot changes on the screen, you react.
React how?
So you react as quickly as you can with a strike, a block, a slip.
Okay.
And the important thing is to just react instantaneously. Don't think about it. Don't try to predict when it's going to change.
Just pure reaction.
Pure reaction, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And then there's another one called the traffic light drill.
Traffic light.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is one you can incorporate into your daily routine.
Oh, okay.
While you're driving, even just riding in a car.
Okay.
When a traffic light changes from red to green, your task is to react.
Okay.
But the reaction is just a quiet verbal cue.
Oh, okay. So I'm not slamming on the gas or anything.
No. And the author is actually very cautious about that. Don't do anything that could be unsafe.
Right.
It's purely about that mental and a subtle vocal reaction.
Gotcha. So just ugh,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Exactly. And you're not trying to anticipate the light turning green. It's about reacting in that split second before conscious thought kicks in.
Oh, okay. Anything?
And then they also recommend video games.
Video games.
Yeah, they can be a surprisingly effective way to boost your reaction speed and anticipation skills.
I mean, I guess some games are really demanding in terms of your reflexes.
They are. And the author, recommends doing a little research to find games that you actually enjoy, but also that challenge your reflexes and require quick decision making.
Yeah, that makes sense. Find something that's fun, but also, pushes you a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay. So we got TV response, we got traffic light, we got video games. What else?
All right. So the next drill is, it's a little unusual.
Okay.
It's called pet snatch.
Pet snatch.
Yeah.
What is that?
So you take a rag or a small toy, you hold it above a playful pet,
Okay.
and just as the pet's about to jump for it, you quickly jerk the object away. And at the same time, you give that quiet verbal cue.
Like, ugh. Okay.
The author emphasizes you should only do this with a pet that you know well,
Right.
and that is comfortable with this kind of interaction. You definitely don't want to try this with an unfamiliar animal.
Right. Or one that's easily spooked.
Exactly.
So it's about reaction again.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
You're using the pet's natural instincts and movements.
Right. Their unpredictability.
Their unpredictability, yeah.
Okay.
And then there's another drill. This one involves working with a partner.
Okay.
Your partner stands at a short distance and lunges forward quickly towards you.
Oh, okay.
And your task is to anticipate their movement
Okay.
and either evade it or shuffle backwards.
Okay.
But you're not using any fakes or feints of your own.
Right. So just pure reading of the movement.
Pure reading.
Okay.
And then, as you both improve, you gradually decrease the distance between you.
So it gets more and more challenging.
It does. This
Yeah.
really trains your ability to read their body language.
Okay. Yeah.
And anticipate that forward momentum.
Gotcha. So you're really focusing in on those pre-attack cues.
Exactly.
Okay. Anything else for this sixth sense development?
So the last thing in this section is about focusing intensely on your opponent's eyes when you're at a distance.
Okay, so this is about reading their intention.
Reading their intentions. The author even suggests a connection to the concept of kai here.
Kai. Yeah.
And I know for some listeners, they might not be familiar with that term. Kai is often referred to as an internal energy, a life force in some martial arts.
Right.
And the author contrasts focusing on the eyes with focusing on other parts of the body.
Okay.
And saying that your reaction speed can actually be quite different.
Interesting.
So the idea is that the eyes are kind of like a windows to the soul, it's not just a saying.
Right. It's about those subtle shifts and tells in the eyes that can reveal a person's intentions before they even move.
Exactly. And by training your focus on this area, you might gain that crucial fraction of a second in anticipating their actions.
Okay. Yeah. So it's all about those tiny, tiny details.
It is. Okay. Moving on, we come to tactile reflexes.
Tactile reflexes. Okay. So we're shifting gears a little bit.
We are. So these are defined as your ability to react quickly to the sense of touch.
Okay. So feeling. Wow.
And the document specifically mentions martial arts like judo, jiu-jitsu, dumog, wrestling, aikido, wing chun, muay thai.
Right. So a lot of grappling arts.
Close
quarters combat.
Exactly. Where those tactile reflexes are really important.
Where your vision might be obstructed or just less reliable than what you're feeling.
Exactly. And the author emphasizes that these sensitivity drills, they're not just about feeling.
Okay.
They're a means to an end.
That's the end.
the end is developing those superior tactile reflexes that will allow you to dominate in those closer fighting ranges.
Okay, yeah. So it's not just about being sensitive. It's about using that sensitivity to your advantage.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they also make a really good point. Learning this kind of sensitivity from a book, it's quite difficult.
Right, yeah.
And they really recommend finding a training partner who's experienced with those close quarters drills.
Right, because you need that real-time feedback from someone who knows what they're doing.
You do. You do. And here's what the source reveals as the secret to really accelerating your improvement in these sensitivity drills.
Oh, okay. The secret. I'm ready.
Practice them blindfolded.
Blindfolded. Blindfolded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reasoning is that by removing your visual input,
That's right.
you force your other senses, particularly touch, to become way more heightened and responsive.
Right. So your brain's kind of forced to adapt.
It is. It is.
Okay.
And the source introduces a couple of foundational blindfolded drills.
Okay. I'm a little nervous, but let's hear them.
All right. So the first one is the single hand sensitivity drill.
Single hand sensitivity.
Yeah.
Like,
Both partners start in a fighting stance. They extend their lead hands until they're lightly touching at the wrists.
so almost like two swords crossed gently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their rear hand is kept behind their back.
Okay.
Both partners close their eyes, and then they focus all their attention on maintaining that light contact
Okay.
and trying to feel any subtle shifts in their partner's energy,
Wow. Okay.
their pressure, their balance.
So it's about like listening with your sense of touch in a way.
It is. It is. And then the second drill is called blind grappling.
Blind grappling. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It could be.
Eh.
It could be. But both partners put on blindfolds, and then they engage from like a wrestling or a judo style starting position.
Okay, so they're already in contact.
They're in contact, yeah. And the goal is to try to take down your partner, but just by relying on what you feel. So
Mhm.
their energy, their movements,
Okay.
any moments where they might be pushing or pulling incorrectly, off balance, anything like that.
Wow.
The author really emphasizes, like, you need to have that acute awareness and then a focused, explosive action when you sense that opening.
Wow. So it's a real test of control and sensitivity.
It is. It
Oh,
is.
okay, cool.
All right, so finally we move on to auditory reflexes.
Auditory reflexes. Okay. Hearing.
Hearing, and these are defined as your ability to react quickly to sounds,
Okay.
which is particularly important for those situations where your vision might be limited, like defending yourself in the dark.
Right.
Or when you're facing multiple attackers and you need to be aware of threats coming from directions you can't see.
Right. Like having eyes in the back of your head.
Exactly. And the source emphasizes that developing all of your senses contributes to faster overall reaction times.
Makes sense. The more information you're taking in, the faster you can react.
Exactly. And it points out that auditory cues that are close to you, your brain can often process those even faster than visual cues.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it highlights like the incredibly developed listening skills often found in people who are visually impaired.
Right. Yeah.
Like a powerful example of how crucial and adaptable our sense of hearing can be.
So again, it's that idea that when one sense is less dominant, the others become more heightened.
Exactly. And to specifically train our auditory reflexes, the source introduces a series of sound trigger drills.
Sound trigger drills. Okay. What are those like?
All right. So the basic sound trigger drill, it involves having a partner shout out a single short syllable word.
Okay.
And as soon as you hear it, after you first say ready, you react with a predetermined strike or block as fast as you can.
Okay. So it's like connecting a specific sound to a specific action.
Exactly. Training your brain to react quickly and automatically to that sound.
Gotcha. So like if they show go, I throw a punch.
Exactly.
Okay. Simple enough.
And then the intermediate sound trigger drill kind of builds on that.
Okay. How so?
So you and your partner, you choose one word, and that's the word that you're going to react to.
Okay.
And your partner will periodically shout out that chosen word, but they'll also mix in other similar sounding words.
Oh, okay. So trying to trick you.
Trying to trick you, yeah.
Gotcha.
And you should only perform the reaction when you hear that specific trigger word.
Okay. So it's about auditory discrimination.
Exactly.
Not just reacting to any sound,
Yeah.
but really identifying the right one.
The right one, yeah.
Okay.
And then The advanced sound trigger drill takes it a step further.
Okay, how's it advanced?
So it's the same as the intermediate drill, where you're listening for that word amongst others, but now your partner deliberately lowers their volume.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's harder to hear.
Harder to hear.
Got to really concentrate.
How to concentrate, yeah. And this really challenges your ability to perceive and react.